Good evening, everyone. This is November 17th, meeting of our Park Commission. I'm going to do a quick roll call of the commissioners as well as the Lunenburg staff that's on. Chris Sullivan, you're here. Dave Passios.
I see him.
I see him. I think he went MIA. Maybe we're backing up a second because without Dave, we don't have a quorum. This is my luck. Okay, well, we'll skip Dave for a second. Then we have Rob Oliva, DPW director, and somewhere on here, Julie Bellevaux, assistant town manager, is joining. Dave, are you with us now?
Yes, I am. Thanks.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. You create our quorum. So we are good to go. Just to remind everybody that this is a meeting that is being recorded. It will eventually be put up onto YouTube. So just be careful as you screen share to make sure that anything that you put out there wants to be seen by the public. What we have on our agenda this evening is the meeting with presentations by 4 different firms that we had received proposals from regarding Marshall Park. It is my plan that we've allotted about a half an hour for each group, that they will do a 15-ish minute presentation and leave some time for us to ask questions. Each of the commissioners can ask their own questions. And if Rob or Julie or anybody else has any questions to add in, feel free to do that as well. I have not heard back from Anna. Catherine, are you with us from WOLA?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the screen share that I need to.
Great.
Okay. Chris, you want to walk me through this again? Because I don't remember how to do it.
Oh, I think I've got it.
Oh, you do? Yeah.
Would you like me to start, or are you still?
Let me give it one more minute just to make sure that we do have 2 other commissioners. I'm not sure. I know one of them reached out earlier and said she would be here, so I just want to make sure she's just not struggling to get in. So bear with us for 1 second. And Catherine, did it look like your screen share was going to work?
It did. I can just buzz it up real quick to make sure.
Yeah, do you want to do that just so we're not killing time?
Yeah, of course. Can everyone see that all right?
I can, yes, I can.
Yep.
Great.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Great.
All right, give us 1 second. I'm going to mute for 1 second, and I'm just going to give Anna a quick call.
Sounds good.
All right, so Anna, I just let in, so we should be good there. Chris, you said you sent something over to Susanna. Are you muted, Chris? You're muted. Talking to yourself.
Yeah. Not even the dogs in the room listening. They're all left. I did. I have not heard back from her. I did text her that.
No problem. All right, so we're going to get started. So Catherine, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and take it away.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Karen, and thank you to the Lunenburg Park Commission for having us here tonight. I am here with my fellow WOLA principal, Emily Wright, and also Nicholas Betts, who is our team member from Meridian Engineering. So they'll be jumping in at various points as we run through the presentation. Oops. Oh, there we go. So we're going to start off with an introduction to our firm, talk to you a little bit about our project team, the approach that we are hoping to take for Marshall Park, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you may have or sort of take the conversation a little further. So WOLA is a firm that values optimism. Our work responds to history and context, and we listen to our clients and respect their time and resources. And these sort of guide all of our activities as a firm. Emily and I have a combined 20 years of experience. We're a fully insured and Commonwealth certified WBE. We have an office in Watertown and an office in Northampton. so we're experienced working across the Commonwealth and throughout New England. We like to design things that involve careful analysis of the site's history and context. We find that that develops meaningful projects. We like coming up with imaginative design solutions to complex problems. We value authentic client engagement, direct, consistent communication, and the respect of our clients' resources. Most recently, WOLA has had some municipal and educational experience. Working with Springfield, Sudbury, and Northampton, as well as Mount Wachusett on their tennis courts. The MOC, Making Opportunity Count, over there in Fitchburg, as well as Smith and Amherst College, the Men's School, and Girls Inc. So a nice mix of municipal and institutional projects. For this project, we've assembled a team with principal in charge, Emily Wright, and myself as project manager from WOLA. We have Edie Ambrose as a cost estimator. And from Meridian Civil Engineering, we have John Ings and Nicholas Betts, who is with us tonight. So that would be your project team for Marshall Park. Emily Wright is licensed in Massachusetts, Kentucky, and New York. She has extensive experience in higher education and municipal projects, as well as custom residential. And she'll be providing project oversight for the contract and guidance to myself, the project manager, as needed. These are some of Emily's previous projects. I am licensed in Massachusetts, New York, and Connecticut, and I have past experience with municipal projects as well as custom residential. I'll be managing the project, overseeing communication with the town as the touch point, as well as design and graphics production. And I'll also be managing our sub-consultants for this project. Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about the Meridian Associates team? Oh, Nick.
Unmuted, there we are.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I thought I'd start with just a quick company overview. Meridian Associates is a 30-person civil engineering firm. We have in-house civil engineering, landscape architecture, and surveying. We specialize in land use, planning and development with infrastructure design, and primary focus is sustainable stormwater management. John Ings is the vice president of the company and leader of the municipal infrastructure division. He has over 30 years of experience working with municipalities from initial concept, design and feasibility studies through the bidding and construction phases. John's role in this project would be to review the existing infrastructure that's at the park, identify any areas of concerns, provide any input into potential necessary improvements, and additional kind of the civil engineering perspective on any conceptual development ideas. This that you're looking at now may be familiar to some of you. That's the TCP Passio School in Lunenburg, right down the street. Meridian Associates did the initial survey of the site using our laser scanning drone technology. And we've also provided some alternative designs for the building and potential reuse of the building. Go to the next slide. My name is Nicholas Betts. I'm a registered landscape architect with Meridian Associates. I'm also a sites accredited professional, which, if you don't know, is essentially lead for everything related to the environment. My primary focus is in sustainability, green infrastructure, and low impact design. Some of these projects that you see on screen, starting at the top left, is a linear skate park in Cambridge, which is locally referred to as Rainbow Road. A rehabilitation of an abandoned park, top right, that's Sharon Woods in Boston. And then the bottom one, bottom right, is an overlook we did at the Alewife Stormwater Wetland. And the bottom left is a skate park. Meridian worked with a skate park design company to provide the stormwater management and solutions for that skate park in Hudson, Mass. I previously served as the vice chairman of the Topsfield Conservation Commission, so I'm very familiar with all of the Massachusetts stormwater standards and wetland protection standards and all of the permitting requirements. There are some resource areas surrounding Marshall Park, so I'm very familiar with what that's going to entail. And my role on this project will be to assist WOLA in any initial site analysis and collaboration through concept development phase to provide strategies for alternative stormwater management, and sustainable site design solutions.
Thank you, Nick. Our understanding of the Marshall Park project is that this is really the centerpiece for Lunenburg. It's adjacent to the core of the Lunenburg sort of civic life with the TC Paseos building that Nick mentioned, as well as the public library, middle high school, and Turkey Hill Elementary beyond. It's primarily accessed via Massachusetts Avenue, and it's really a key part of Lunenburg Center. It's our understanding that some of the facilities are outdated from reading the RFP. And in our preliminary understanding, the town survey has indicated that the community would like a revitalized park and someone to help them envision a multi-use recreational facility. In terms of our process, the first step is always to engage with the Park Commission and other municipal stakeholders, as well as to undertake some site analysis. This is some site analysis that we undertook as part of a WOLA project for the city of Northampton. They engaged with us to complete a report on the formal and informal river swimming areas in the city. So what we did is created graphics and overlays that clearly communicate to stakeholders and to the public what they're looking at. So where is the swimming access, general swimming area, as well as, and particularly relevant to Marshall Park, the adjacent environmental resource areas and their associated buffers. For Marshall Park, we did a little bit of preliminary site analysis, just identifying, the main entry is at Massachusetts Avenue with a secondary entry along Chestnut. We looked at all of the bordering vegetated wetlands and their associated buffers. In my visit, I noticed that there's a pretty substantial grade bank along here, and as well as a bat house that's been erected. So there's a lot of interest, it seems like, already in Marshall Park, which is wonderful. The next step in the process is typically stakeholder engagement. And this is always a key part to get the community's voice involved from the outset and get stakeholders on board to start building consensus. We undertook this process with the town of Sudbury, envisioning a way to use some recently acquired parcels with an agricultural character to them. So we worked with the planning department to create a series of activities for the community to become involved with, making sure that voices are heard, whether quiet or loud, through curated activities, which gathered some data that we then used to inform our concept design work. So a directly traceable route from sort of the mouths of the community to the concept design. In terms of our understanding of the Marshall Park stakeholder goals, through our read through the RFP, it seems like there's a priority on athletic facilities, as Nick mentioned, the linear skate park, pavilion areas, which Emily previously worked on, some walking trails. This is adjacent to Connecticut wetland area, and also sort of small playgrounds and more athletic fields in Lexington, Kentucky, another project of Emily's. They also mentioned wanting a skate park and restrooms, as well as accessible pathways. And these are all projects that we've worked on. This is a sort of central area in Montague that welcomes people as a gateway, play area down in Kentucky, and an Amherst College accessible ramp that blends in with the surroundings and complements the central quad. In terms of the concept design, which would be the third part of the Marshall Park process, I wanted to share a couple of previous concept sort of design pieces that we've done that I thought related to Marshall Park. This is, again, the City of Northampton swim report. We came up with a series of overlays. This particular overlay highlights potential signage and wayfinding for the Connecticut River Greenway, which is adjacent to a swimming area. So this is really identifying to the community and to the Park Commission where things could be and what they might look like, to start getting feedback as we refine the initial concepts into a preferred alternative. We visit Sudbury, where we created a concept design that incorporated the community's feedback and the priorities of the Sudbury Parks Department, as well as the Planning Department, with walking paths, a small playground area, a picnic pavilion, and parking. Does this sound familiar, Lunenburg? And, you know, as part of our thinking, we always hesitate to come up with design ideas before we speak with the Park Commission and also with the community. But in visiting Marshall Park and sort of walking it, there were a couple things that we noticed that we thought might be important to think about. Starting with a welcoming arrival point off of Massachusetts Avenue. You have a wonderful granite pier, so sort of highlighting that signage and identifying it as an important gateway. Incorporating the skate park into the central area where the playground equipment is right now. And then thinking about ADA access around that grade break and clarifying pedestrian and parking circulation so that there are clear pathways for people and clear pathways for cars. Some of our projects that we've recently completed are a welcoming entrance at Colony Hills Terrace in Springfield. This is an entrance to an Olmsted designed neighborhood, and they wanted to revitalize it so that the community felt like it really welcomed people into their neighborhood. Meridian Associates worked on the South Broadway Park in Malden, incorporating athletics facilities, sports lighting, and a playground, as well as ADA walkways and improved vehicular access to the park. And Emily worked on Mitteneek Park in West Springfield, Massachusetts, incorporating walkways as well as picnic pavilions and additional amenity. And with that, a brief overview. We really appreciate your time, and we are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you so very much. That was very informative. Park Commissioners, Rob, Julie, does anybody have any questions to start with? All right, well then I guess I will start with my questions first. The timeline that we have in the RFP, does that seem like a doable timeline?
It does for us.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, excellent.
This would be a priority for us.
Okay, thank you. ADA compliance, it's extremely important to everybody. It's
Yes.
extremely important to our park commission. We had we built a playground with the help of a Lunenburg resident a number of years ago that was ADA compliant. What I realized at the time was that ADA compliant barely touched the surface of what needed to be done for an inclusive play area.
Yes.
Is that things that you have experience with as you're looking at Marshall Park and what can go in there to do something more than just be ADA compliant, something that would be inclusive to everybody in our community?
It's really interesting that you bring that up because it is a difference. There's inclusivity and there's meeting sort of the baseline. And Emily, I don't know if you are out there. Emily and I have worked together designing playgrounds that are sort of universally accessible for the Montechusett Opportunity Council, which is now making opportunity count in Fitchburg. And so we've actually been working with them on a couple of different concept and schematic designs that incorporate tactile play, play areas that are aware of light and shadow for those with sensory issues, making sure that everyone has a place at the water table and at the sand table. Also incorporating nature play, sort of natural materials, so that people can access them with a number of different mobilities. And Emily, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
Yeah, and to just elaborate on what Catherine was saying, with our work with MOC, we've been trying to focus on opportunities for kids with various abilities to be able to interact together. So if there's a climbing structure, creating a space, so either within that climbing structure or through it somehow, so that a child in a wheelchair could experience that space as well and be hanging out with their friends. So providing opportunities for kids with various abilities to enjoy an activity together is really a priority in developing inclusive play spaces.
Thank you very much on that. Another one of our, as a park commission, we are very heavy in baseball fields. So when we look at Marshall Park and we say that we are looking at our athletic fields, do you have experience with multi-use athletic fields and the, the space needed for a multi-use field like that? Because right now our 90-foot diamond is important. It's being used by our high school. We hate to lose it. So we're just trying to see if, like, as we've been talking over the past, what seems like forever, is that possible to make it a multi-use area? Is that things that you folks have experience with?
I can actually speak to that if it's all right. South Broadway Park in Malden is a synthetic turf that primarily serves as a baseball field, but it also has markings for a lacrosse field and a soccer field. Now, I can't say that those meet regulations of, the various sizes that are required, but it does serve as a multi-use field. So it kind of, it adds another value to having that field.
Great, thank you. Do any of our other commissioners have any questions?
Karen, I'm not a commissioner, but I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
Or more of a statement. We have a recreation program that we quickly realized this year was that Marshall Park was not suited towards our local rec program in terms of we didn't have the facilities required by state law to hold so-called day camps. Is that something you're familiar with, the regulations involved? Because that's as kind of as the DPW director, our rec director works under me, and so we saw the need this year and actually couldn't use Marshall Park because it didn't meet what the state laws required. So just have you had projects that was something you needed to look at, and are you familiar with those requirements?
Again, for making opportunity count in Fitchburg, they have students who are there during the day, and they also have students who are there for summer programs. We've also been working with Girls Inc. of the Valley down in Holyoke, and Emily's been managing that project. Emily, do you want to touch base on that at all?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we have open space requirements that we have to meet for Girls Inc. We also are working with Redgate Farm, which is a non-profit in Ashfield, Mass, and they have a camp program over the summer. So we've been working with them to develop their open space and actually some student housing and updating their facilities so that they can have a camp program there. So we are familiar with these kinds of facilities, and we understand that for licensing and insurance and things like that, there are very specific requirements needed to accommodate kids for these kinds of summer programs.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask you, you kind of touched a little bit on the Redgate Farm. What was the Redgate Farm project? The information on the proposal didn't have much. So it was can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Sure, absolutely. Currently, Redgate Farm has a camper program. So they're a farm that they primarily focus on small crops like vegetable gardening, and then they also have sheep and some oxen. And their summer program has students coming from urban areas as well as local kids that are interested in farming, interested in learning how to grow food. And right now, the campers stay primarily in cabins that are pretty rustic, pretty informal. And the program is limited to the summer. So we've been working with them and an architect, Kuhn Riddle Architects, to develop some student housing so they can have students there in the winter, because farming, despite what most people think, doesn't just end when the snow falls. There are still animals to take care of and chickens to feed and still plenty of things to do. So we've been working with them to incorporate the student housing component and to provide accessible routes. That's something that they don't have currently. The farm is on a steep hillside, and accessibility is a major issue for them in being able to be a space that's open to the public. And then utilizing the views and making the most of the farm and the way that they use it, something that we've been helping them with as well.
Thank you. That was great. I actually know Redgate Farm. My kids went there for summer.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. Can you you touched on that you were working with architects that are offering pro bono services, and how are you integrating your work with their work? How that work has been?
Is that specific to Redgate Farm or?
Yeah. Just because you talked about that project. So how that's going, and how have you found to be successful? What has been difficult?
Yeah, so Redgate Farm is a nonprofit, but our work and the architects that we're working with, we're not currently working pro bono for that project, just to be clear. We are working for Girls Inc. of the Valley, which is another nonprofit that supports after school programs for elementary school, middle school, and high school girls. We are doing some nonprofit work for them at their new location.
Okay. The reason that I ask is part of in which I guess it wasn't very clear on the documentation that we provided, is that the skate park, that is an organization that's going to provide some services, some of the design and so forth. So one hurdle that we'll have is, mitigating that, finding a way to work with a different organization who will be bringing in their own expert, but that's kind of an important piece to it. So I wasn't sure if you have had experience working with other groups in that way.
I see, and definitely yes. Catherine,
Okay.
did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as landscape architects, we actually very frequently work with other groups collaborating, whether it's different departments in the same municipality with different interests, different community groups. Some may be interested in athletics, others are interested in conservation. We work with architects, engineers, sometimes structural engineers. So we're very familiar with gathering everybody at the table and coming up with design work that incorporates all of these different perspectives. Especially, I think, Nicholas, when we work with civil engineers, there's a lot of back and forth so that we come up with the best solution for the client.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Chris Sullivan, do you have anything?
Yeah, real quick. In your introductory letter, you mentioned some of your projects have worked as part of the park grant program. So just whether you could shed a little light on that. That's just, something that would be of interest maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked at Mitteneek Park, which is in West Springfield. It was funded primarily through park grants, and we've also been working with the city of Springfield, and some of the open space improvements we've been making there have been funded through park grants as well.
Great.
Thanks.
I do have one more question. Can you sort of give us an idea of community meetings that are, as we move forward and we bring our community into these discussions, how do you usually envision them running on from your side of things?
So for us, I love community meetings.
I don't know how to run them, so that's
Yeah,
awesome.
well, we do. So it's great. So typically what we do is we come up with a series of questions and goals by meeting with the Park Commission so that we understand what information the Park Commission would like from the community meeting. What are your goals? What are you curious about? Are there directions that you would like to explore with the community? Are there directions that you are perhaps less interested in? And that may be from an investment standpoint, a maintenance standpoint. We want to make sure that everybody's on board from the municipal level. And then typically we'll puts our heads together and we come up with a series of activities that sort of gets people up out of their seats, moving around and interacting with one another and with us and with the representatives from Lunenburg. And that way we make sure that we get everybody's voice involved. Typically, and stop me if I go into too much detail, but typically we like to warm the group up with a little bit of open mic and a little bit of introduction and site analysis. That way, some people really like to stand up and talk at a microphone. So we make space for those people to do that and have their voices heard. Then we also do sticker activities or voting activities. Some people don't like to be at an open mic, but they want to have their input, and they should. So we come up with different activities to make sure that they can walk around and put stickers up or put pins or vote with beans, you name it. So it's kind of coming up with a mix of activities that makes it actually fun to undertake planning activities. And then the great thing about all of those activities is that there's data at the end, so that rather than saying, oh, we think, most people liked this, we can say 86% of, participants said that they preferred this style of bench, 14% preferred this style. So it's, kind of making sure that everybody is incorporated.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. Dave Passios, just so you folks know, I grew up in that neighborhood and I spent most of my summers in that park. So
Wonderful.
a number of decades ago, I spent a very large amount of time in there. Two of the one major issue that we've had for decades is a parking issue, especially on Chestnut Street.
Mhm.
There was a plan brought forward by a previous DPW director that was not acted on. You may have seen, actually, I believe
We
that
did.
engineered plan was forwarded to you.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily believe that the Parks Commission would like to incorporate that particular design, but we're going to need to find a way to mitigate parking issues
Mhm.
for the entire park. I will make a comment, though, that I hate to take up space for parking and lose opportunities for other passive recreation, et cetera.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know if anybody wants to comment on any other projects that have had this challenge and maybe the way you worked around it. It's something I'm sure we'll discuss extensively.
Let me actually, just going to share this for a moment. Flipping back to Sudbury. So the town of Sudbury actually had a similar, they wanted parking, but they didn't want it to be sort of the front and center feature of their recently purchased parkland. So by breaking up the parking into sort of smaller areas and recessing it behind buildings, clustering, and also setting it back and having sort of screen plantings, we were able to accommodate their need for parking without having a parking lot, if that makes sense. So I think that as we know, every site is different. And I think that for Marshall Park, just from my sort of walk around the park and trying to understand the circulation, it seems like there is opportunity to increase parking, but without making it the core feature of the park.
Okay, great, thank you. Secondly, obviously the area that has been least used in the last 6 or 7 decades is everything to the east of the ball fields. Forest area, substantial wetlands. There are actually some trails in there and a few plank log bridges that go through a wet area, so on and so forth. But there are also some a beautiful plateau area overlooking Marshall Pond that, you know, I envision a picnic area there, not an extensively developed picnic area, but something that, you know, on a nice spring or summer afternoon, you can take a lunch out there and look over the pond. Until we get a complete survey of the property, it's really not known if we're going to be able to add trails along the shores of Marshall Pond and allow, which would give us access all the way out to Highland Street also. It's already an existing small parking area there. And again, one of my longtime visions has been a small pocket park there with a connecting trail that tied into the main park.
Yeah, I think, Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about your
I absolutely do. I heard the word survey. So yeah, Meridian has a very kind of state-of-the-art, I think one of the only in New England drone capabilities. So we actually have a very expensive drone that has a laser scanner on it, and we're able to go out any time of year, weather permitting obviously, and scan a site like such as Marshall Park in one day. And you get basically a complete survey of all the information. It can penetrate through forests and trees, so you get a very accurate topography of the any of the wooded areas on the site. And that just it leads to a very, very comprehensive, almost 3D model-like scan of the entire site, which can then be used to determine where existing paths are, where proposed paths could go, and kind of the opportunities that you have. It works very well for large scale sites such as Marshall Park. It's what we did over at the TCP Passio School, and we essentially have a 3D point cloud of the entire property. As far as the boardwalks and overlooks, I personally have a lot of experience with low impact designs it's actually a helical pier technique that's used. This is one example that actually has concrete footings because it's within the water, but there are helical piers that are used to kind of elevate the boardwalk above the forest floor, which helps to prevent any sort of damage to the existing forest, trees, and vegetation. But it still gives that accessible user experience within that forested woodland. So there's a lot of opportunities there, especially in Marshall Park, to use something like that, or at least work up a concept design for it.
Okay. The other question I had, existing conditions assessment. Will that be done right at the beginning of this project so that you guys already know what the existing conditions are before we have any public meetings, maybe after the kickoff meeting, but before any public hearings?
That's exactly what we're hoping to do, is meet with you all and understand your goals. You can fill us in on anything that we should be aware of, and then we will undertake site analysis. Typically what we do is we actually send you ahead of time a draft of our presentation with all of the site analysis so that we can get your input before we show anything to the public, to make sure that we're all on board and we're reflecting your preferences.
Yeah. I think the biggest issue, and any one of the groups I'm sure has dealt with this before, that, you know, we have 5 commissioners and we all have special interests in passive recreation and direct recreation that we'd like to see incorporated in the park. But ultimately, with 5 people giving you a list, you can't fit them all. So,
Right. But we can do a really nice design that incorporates many of them.
Right.
And sort of identifying the complementary adjacencies and grouping things together, I think is a good recipe for a multi-use public space that everyone feels welcome at.
Great.
and one of the things I think we have an opportunity here for at this park as we add recreational opportunities is to take a look at what programming is already in place for indoor winter sports and accommodate them into the spring and summer, summer and fall into an outside venue for the same sport. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys so very much. That was an awesome presentation. I appreciate your time and being here this evening. I'm assuming when the dates, the addendums went out with the dates, you saw that we're meeting again on Monday to make our decision on
We did.
where we're going to go from here. Great. Thank you guys so very much. You have a great evening.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are still running on track. I see that Warner Larson has showed up in the building or on Zoom, however you want to say that. Who is presenting here from Warner Larson this evening?
David Warner will be
Awesome.
presenting.
Okay.
Some of us on the team will jump in to
That's fine.
say
I just
a
want
little
to
bit.
just want to make sure that you have the access to screen share. And if I needed to do anything from my ends, I think we should be good. I didn't have to on the last one, so yes. If you folks are all here, you're welcome to get going, or we can wait a few more minutes because I know we didn't have you on until 7:45.
Waiting for David to join, Karen.
Okay.
He should be here shortly.
Great, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. Sorry, I jumped on a couple minutes ago. Well, I guess another firm was finishing up.
That's okay. It's a public meeting. It's all good. So I'm Karen Menard. I'm the chair of the Park Commission. I want to make sure that you have the ability to screen share from your ends. You want to just double check that?
Yep, I can.
All right, awesome. We're ready for you guys whenever you're ready to go.
Okay, great. Let me just start my presentation. Bear with me for 1 second, please.
No rush.
Let's see. I want to share a different screen. Screen 2. Okay. So you can see that. Now I need to just start the slideshow. Two-step process. Okay, so everybody can see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm David Warner. I'm the president of Warner Larson Landscape Architects. Just wanted to start by saying that I really fell in love with your town when I was working with Taipei Architects on your new middle school and high school project. I used to love driving out there and through Lunenburg during those years. We'd really welcome the opportunity to collaborate with your town again. And I'm committing to directly managing your project if our team is selected. This is a photo of Marshall Pond that Samir took at the briefing. And we think this quote from Frederick Law Olmsted perfectly sums up the essence of why accessible open space is so important to public health and enjoyment, even more so during the pandemic. So we're going to keep our presentation to under 15 minutes like you requested, focusing on our understanding of the town of Lunenburg, your priorities for this project, and what differentiates our team. In the interest of time, I'm going to be doing the presentation, but we're all here for Q&A. And thanks to Zoom, all of us except for Tim Powers are able to join this evening and make a personal introduction. Josh?
Hey, good evening. I'm Josh Malonik. I'm a senior landscape architect here with Warner Larson. I've been with the town, with the with Warner Larson for about 5 years. I have an overall experience of 15 years. And, during my time with Warner Larson, I've been involved on many different park designs, ranging from small community projects to large master plan campuses. I also have 2 kids that love to be our quote test art designs. They're 11 and 7 years old, and they have been officially dubbed as the Warner Larson quality control inspectors. And I'm sure they are willing and able and can't wait to continue testing for us. We'll pass on to Samir now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Samir Boite. I'm a design director with Warner Larson. So I've been designing parks for over a decade now. And like David, I actually work with Tappe Architects on your high school, middle school as well. So I'm very familiar with the beautiful setting of your town. But when I actually visited Marshall Park, I was really blown away by the different ecosystems. Hiking is a personal hobby, and you see my backdrop is from Marshall Parks, and I'll be very honored and excited to work with you towards your new vision. Thank you.
Emily.
Hi, my name is Emily Hunt. I am a landscape architect, and I've been working for over 6 years professionally. I just recently became a CPSI, which is a certified playground safety inspector. So it's really exciting. I'm thrilled with the possibility of working on Marshall Park. One of my good friends grew up in Lunenburg, and he said that he knows Marshall Park very well. It's actually where he learned how to ride his bicycle, is on the track. So it's just a really great story to have. And it would be great to be able to continue to design a place where your community members can make memories, for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
Hi, I'm Charlie Hay, principal at Tappe Architects in Boston. We're on the team to provide any necessary architectural design and support from that perspective. We have a very long and successful relationship with Warner Larson. They're super creative, but they're also very practical, and they're great to work with. And as has been mentioned multiple times now, we all together did the middle high school, which I'm incredibly proud of. And I think we have a really good sense of the architectural character of your community, which would be important, obviously, in any building design. And we'd love to work in town again. So thank you.
And the other Charlie. Thank you.
Hi, so I am the skate park designer from Spawn Ranch that would be working on this project. And I grew up here. I lived in Hamilton, Wenham area. I lived in Boston. I lived in Southborough. This is my hometown. This is my community. These are my skaters, so I understand, the need for the skaters of this community to have something world-class and just, something that they want to skate every single day and for generations to come. So, we worked with Warner Larson at Spawn Ranch for many different projects, and we work so well together, and it's just everything's like comes together so easily. So I'm excited for this project because it's in my backyard. We just recently did one in Pittsfield, and we did one in Leominster, Mass, and I would love to do more parks in Massachusetts, as it's my hometown. It's where I grew up. I'm a former professional skateboarder. And that sort of curtailed into my wanting to design skate parks for just the next generation of skaters to excel and just make a facility that's of high caliber for the skaters and the bikers and the scooters and in that community. So that's literally why I got into skate park design. So
thank you. We're so glad you could join us tonight.
David, I may want to add, just want to add to what Charlie echoed. So the design committee, we are actually familiar that the skating community actually has a website, and there's so much funding they've done. And I know they've worked with some other skate companies from a concept. So even though we have Charlie from Spawn Ranch, we are completely open. If the town wants to work, the skate community from Lunenburg wants to work with a different company, we can still have Spawn Ranch provide as an advice consultant. So I just want to let everybody know that. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep moving along here, but thank you all for the introductions. Our proposal that we submitted to you demonstrates our planning and design experience on several park projects that range from simple renovations to complex planning initiatives like your project. And over our company's 40-year history, at least 95% of our master planning projects have actually gone through construction. Our work is focused primarily on municipal schools, parks, and athletic facilities, and we pride ourselves delivering projects on time and within budget. We truly believe that people enjoying the spaces that we design to their full potential is a true measurement of what makes a project successful. And we treat every project as a unique design opportunity to create spaces that are meaningful to the communities that we serve. We discovered some interesting highlights about Lunenburg, including your community's growth rate and priorities from your recent open space plan. And it's easy to see why your town is growing quickly, given the beautiful natural resources, the great schools, and the good housing close to Boston and Worcester. But this growth also puts pressure on these qualities that make Lunenburg so unique and beautiful. And it heightens the need to plan for the future while meeting current demands. So we applaud your efforts in prioritizing the access to open space for all residents. And our focus on multi-generational parks that integrate passive and active uses in a harmonious way with their natural settings is a great fit for your project. Lunenburg is truly a beautiful town, one of the main reasons why we're very excited about possibly working with you. This compiled map is something we put together to demonstrate that most of the recreational areas and trails in town are separated by considerable distance. And this also helps you visualize that the distance it takes to walk or bike 5 to 10 minutes to Marshall Park, which is in the heart of town, where many activities are concentrated. So the light blue line is a 10-minute walk to the entrance to Marshall Park. And then the two darker blue lines are 5 and 10-minute cycling distance for reference. These fields are clearly loved by the high school and recreational teams that play here, and your facility staff are doing an amazing job maintaining the athletic fields in exceptional condition. We believe that this park offers so much more potential, though, for recreation and access, given its size, its natural beauty, and topography. In addition to flexible open lawn space for picnicking and play, you could provide access to the pond for bird watching and winter skating. You could introduce games that are attractive to seniors, such as bocce and horseshoe. And of course, we all know you have a group motivated to introduce a skate park. So a trail and a boardwalk system built into this yellow line, for instance, would be a 1-mile loop within the park. Before I talk a little bit more about the opportunities and constraints, I just wanted to mention that Warner Larson is the only firm among the ones you're interviewing today who took the time to come to your on-site briefing. And we found that extremely helpful. And thanks to Rob Oliva, who's a colleague I worked with for about 15 years when he was in the private sector. Hi, Rob, who mentioned the existing bunker on site, and that piqued Emily's interest, who did some digging and found this interesting history from 1937. We understand you want to kind of keep it closed because you don't want people crawling down in there, but it was an interesting piece of history nonetheless. And it also references that this park has been used for active recreation for many years. One thing we noted in our proposal, even though the park is big, there's considerable grade changes and mature trees, and these present a challenge to universal access in a sensitive way. So shown here are just some ways we can achieve that, where sloped walkways can offer seating along the pathway, or simple granite steps could double as lawn stairs and spectator seating without a whole lot of infrastructure. And we also understand there's an interest in restoring the cinder track, given its history and timeless benefits. The current aesthetic of picnic tables among tree groves is one of Marshall Park's innate qualities that we see really worth preserving. And we'd like to introduce you to low impact accessible surfacing systems that would ensure the trees don't suffer setbacks from this construction. Likewise, with our sports expertise from over 2 decades, our knowledge of current codes, we can focus on creative and compliant solutions that are best value and work with your park aesthetics. Another element that could be introduced are workout stations. You have them now, and the way they're spread out along a trail is the way they were introduced to parks a long time ago. But the current trend is to have multiple workout activities in a single location, and that combines kind of the social aspects of a gym with group training workouts, and they're also more senior friendly. So the 1-mile loop trail I mentioned would be a decent hike for people of all abilities and can introduce educational signage about the ecosystem and habitat while you have resting spots along the way. And accessibility areas, accessible routes through natural areas, although they're feasible, are very technical And in order to minimize the impacts to the natural landscape, we have to use very specific solutions. And we're currently working with the town of Rockport on an accessible trail loop to the Headlands Point. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but it's right overlooking the harbor. It's a beautiful location. And our solutions are using low boardwalk systems linked by pathway walkways for year-round accessibility. And we're also working with their Public Works Department to make sure that there's an accessible route that connects all the way down to the center of town. This is one of our projects that we're really proud of and that Josh managed with, was the project manager at Warner Larson and worked on with Tappe Architects, who designed the library. Our team's design integrated both the building and the park seamlessly so that the activities each have the shared benefits of the outdoor space. Hey, Josh, do you want to say a few words about this project?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was a great project that, you know, Warner Larson was able to work with Charlie's team in designing the building. You know, this project really came together almost seamlessly. I'm a resident of Weymouth, and this library is literally a mile down the street. So I was able to do many site visits and really kind of get involved during the construction administration process. But, you know, working with Charlie, we were able to incorporate, you know, a variety of different amenities into the design that served, you know, a wider variety of community benefits. You know, it fulfilled the library kind of goals and aspects, but it also provided a wide variety of additional kind of community benefits. And, you know, we really kind of see that happening as this a similar possibility happening at Marshall Park for your town as well.
Great, thanks, Josh. So what does it really all come down to? I just want to recap what differentiates us and why we believe we're the right fit for your project. Team and capacity. You'll have a principal level of engagement here. I will personally lead this project if you're selected, if we are selected for this project, and coordinating our team of experts, all very, very capable at the top of their game. You've heard from architect, you know, from Charlie and from others, but we also have people that are not on this call. Cost estimating is also a very important aspect of this project. Expertise, we combine both sports and park design, and both of these are required for your project. We believe we have the right process as well. And it's based on our solid track record of working with communities to form consensus around a preferred solution that can get built, can get funded and get built. And we dream big, but then we get real. We need to balance oftentimes competing priorities in a solution that the public will support. Our longstanding partnership with our clients, well past when there's ribbon cutting at the end of the project. We make ourselves available to our clients long after, and helping to advise on operations and maintenance and encouraging landscape stewardship. So I know we're wrapping up. I trust that our references that we listed in our proposal helped to reassure you what it's like to work with Warner Larson. We wanted to wrap up our presentation with a few testimonials. I'm not going to read them verbatim, but I'll give you a few anecdotes along the way if you want to read what you can see on the screen. Hank Half is a very detailed-oriented person, and he is also working with a similarly detail-focused permanent building committee. But I found them a real pleasure to work with. I enjoyed their attention to detail because every aspect of this project was thoroughly understood and appreciated every step of the way. I think the primary focus of this project was accessibility through the wetlands and woodlands, and that's why we use that as an example. Now with Boston Parks, Allison Perlman, project manager, she really emphasizes the experience doing complete park renovations, and that we're in the relationship with Boston Parks for the long haul, making sure that our projects are designed to succeed. And then lastly, I wanted to point out with the town of Billerica, you know, Dave Grubb is the recreation director there. And in looking at your down at Lunenburg Recreation website, we saw that you're currently engaging with social media, offering new programs to residents, and that's really great. Billerica is doing the same thing. And one of the things that excites us most about what Dave Grubb's vision with his plan is to host children's summer camps at this park when it gets built next year. And I think that that's a great opportunity for Marshall Park as well. So thank you. That wraps up our presentation. Hopefully I was able to squeeze that into your 15 minutes. If you'd like, I can stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other's faces.
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That was great information, and you're right on the money with time. So we're good there.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with my questions, and of course, the rest of our commissioners, as well as our DPW director, feel free to chime in at any point with your questions. So first, I'm going to make a comment because I've questioned whether or not how clear our RFP was. The 01462 skate park, the current intention is that they will be coming in and it will be a self-funded project. We would just be giving them the space. So they would be the ones responsible for, determining their designer and coming in and doing all the work. So that's first and foremost. Our timeline that we have in our RFP, is that doable for you guys? Does it look like there's any issues with that timeline and community meetings?
It's certainly aggressive. I won't deny that. And you probably know that as well. I think that the key is to what your goal is, in terms of forming a master plan for the park. Obviously, the goal after that would be to have something that that's actionable, that you can go for funding and build. But we understand that this is first and foremost developing a schematic design that the community can support. And so the one thing that I can commit to is that we will be just as responsive as you need us to be available when your community is available to meet. I think to us, that will probably be the limiting factor on your schedule, is scheduling meetings.
Okay, great. And those community meetings, one thing in all this, my commissioners have heard this 1,000 times. I'm learning as I go in all of this. I may have been a park commissioner for 5 years, but we've never taken on a project like this, so it's all new. So when we do community meetings, what do those usually look like when meetings that you've been involved with through your firm in other towns?
Great question. And I guess I have to first start by saying, is it going to be Zoom, hybrid, or in person? I prefer in person. And, I think if you can coordinate those in concert with your town's policies with regard to in-person meetings, we would welcome that. It's much more engaging as a process as far as we're concerned, but hybrid introduces a whole new level of engagement that wasn't possible previously. And so we have done that. Like in the town of Billerica, we actually hosted a Zoom meeting while we were presenting to a group of people at town hall, so that other people could call in and hear, and also we could take comments in the comment box. So I think the approach that you want to take, we can fit whatever mode you want, but how it works, just in terms of the overall process, we like to try to do it in at least a 3-step process, where the first meeting is really about listening and hearing what people have to say, because at the end of the day, they need to know that their voice has been heard. And so that first step is really important. And then where we're showing a range of solutions that take that input into consideration and explain what works, what doesn't work, and why, and get people's input. And usually, let me back up. Usually there's a pre-meeting with a core group, like your Parks Commission, first in preparation before going public with each one of these. So really for us, it's like 6 meetings, but there's 3.
David, I may chime in. Yeah. So Karen, one of the things, unfortunately, the time is not going to be the climate is not going to be perfect for this. We often actually done meetings in the park itself. And if you have an event happening at the park, like Billerica, the Pop Warner had a big game. So it's like advertising social media. So you got a lot of parents and the children. It's a perfect time to show up with boards because you get a lot of participation. We found sometimes, like when it's in a town hall, you don't get as many people. Parents are busy. That's why I said, unfortunately, the timing, because we're going to winter now, we may not quite be able to host a meeting at the park. But
yeah, so
that's something that's not ideal preference, actually. One of the community meetings we actually
at the park. We can get that type of input though through online surveys. Yep. It's not as ideal. But the second step in the process, like I was explaining, is going back with conceptual options to show people what the differences are, what the trade-offs are, so they understand and have a voice in the preferred solution. And we can help your commission steer this in a particular direction based upon value judgments that the town has. I understand oftentimes there's kind of that mantle. You want people to dream big at the beginning, but like I said in my presentation, you got to get real pretty quick in order to help to make something tangible, fundable, and buildable. And then the third meeting, ideally to wrap up that community process, is to show them the preferred option. And at that time, there's still an opportunity to listen to what people have to say, fine tune it, move it in the right direction. But it's at that time where we're also looking at the trade-offs just in terms of cost, phasing, possible, I don't know, implementation, that sort of thing. But ultimately, if you go on to 4 or more meetings, you can have burnout with the participatory process. You could also have people feeling like their voice wasn't heard, or that there's analysis paralysis. I think it's good to make sure that each meeting we achieve the objective outcomes for that meeting. And then in between, like Samir was saying, for broader community input, spring, summer, and fall outdoor meetings are great, but then we can also put together a survey, online survey, so people can provide their feedback that way.
Awesome, thank you. And one last thing from me, this is going to be a question that I ask of everybody. ADA compliance is important, and as a whole, it's important to our park commission. We learned after a playground build that ADA compliant is the bare minimum, and that inclusivity is really, at least for me, it's the direction that I think we need to be going in. Do you folks have experience with going above and beyond the ADA compliant piece to have things in parks that are inclusive to everybody?
Yeah, I think Emily can answer that.
Emily, if you'd like to, I can chime in after you're done as well.
Yeah, absolutely. ADA compliance and going above and beyond is really important to us. One project that we recently did was having signage that also included Braille. So it really helped anyone be able to use the signage. That was something we heard from the town, and we really made sure to put it in the project. So we actually worked with a manufacturer and made this really neat, unique custom signage. That's just one example. I think every project that we do, we really strive to have unique elements, and understanding that, to be inclusive means that someone should be able to use the park just the same way as everyone else.
Yeah, so another thing from inclusive design, universal design, we don't say ADA, we call it universal design. Seating for seniors, we factored that, like they need a back. It's not just a bench with a back, you also need the armrest, because some seniors have difficulty getting up from a seating if you don't have the armrest. So we factor a lot of things. So we don't just focus on wheelchair, we look at the whole broader spectrum.
Yeah, those are really great examples. So as you can hear, this is really part of our core process of actually designing projects. I think another last example I'll use, and it's a very challenging project. It's one that Emily is working on with me. It's in Somerville at the Healy Schoolyard, which has about a 55-foot grade change from the schoolyard down to a housing community. And they have had 2 monumental staircases since the 1980s with no accessible route. And one of the charges that we were given when the city hired us for that project was to create not just an accessible route, but one that would be inclusive. Now, how do you put a ramp system up a slope, that has 55-foot grade change? What we designed actually was a slab on grade ramping system that was intersected by stairs intermediate to the ramp system, and also had level landings at no more than 3 sections of ramp at a time. So there were resting spots along the way, seating places to sit that are within a landscaped environment. And the route that everybody takes, whether you're, you can climb stairs or walk, and a lot of in a wheelchair or strollers, for instance. And we think this is going to be a big hit with the bikers too, because it's 6 feet wide, is making sure that the pathway, the desire line that people are taking for going up and down the stairs is intersecting those points along the ramp system so that it truly is integrated, and that you don't have a stair over here and a ramp over there. I think those are 3 examples that we've given you, that we look at design, universal design, very seriously to make it as inclusive as possible, given the constraints of the site.
Great, thank you so much. Commissioners, DPW Director, who has questions?
I have one quick question, and Dave, I think you started to talk about it a little bit. We have a rec program that, you know, we were unable to use Marshall Park for summer programs for our kids. And it had to do with the lack of facilities and in meeting state standards for camps. And I think you talked about it a little bit, but just to expand a little bit your experience with that and, you know, seeing that we're fit for the future to, you know, run our programs as we see fit.
Well, I think you need more flexibility in your open space. Right now, there's a lot of single-use dedicated space. And of course, the woodlands are beautiful, but you're probably talking about doing some clearing to be able to create more space. And I think the small ball, it is like a little wiffle ball field, is probably a space that may be an easy target for expansion for other uses. I think that having more flexibility in your open space is a really important aspect to be able to accommodate those types of uses.
Yeah. And I think, Robert, if I may add, so this became a challenge at Billerica PHR, you know, because as the vision expanded, they realized this park is going to be so popular that we initially started with having 4 unisex bathrooms. And they said, that's not enough. You know, we need probably more with the number of people who are going to use this park. So we reached a common thread because obviously every square footage to a building or a facility is going to add costs. So we reached a conclusion, add a couple of more. They stopped at 6, but realizing that when they really have those big league games, we still need to have spots for portable facilities. You know, so it's kind of like, I don't know if that was a question you're asking about, is the facilities we need for summer camp. Possibly, like, you know, the concession, we're doing another project where the concession is not having an actual kitchen appliance because there's a lot of code required with it, but enough that they can use a microwave and like a grill. So you can use frozen food or an outdoor grill. So those type of amenities make somebody to spend a whole day. And you can use the facilities and also some arrangements with the food.
Yeah, and I would just add that shelter, I think, is a really important aspect.
Yeah, and the shelter.
You know,
Which
so Peggy Han and RZA has an existing park shelter that they just purchased through their CPC funding program. As part of the park design, we're working with that same structure to preserve that investment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Passios, if I could.
Go right ahead, Dave.
Yeah, one of the things that really piqued my interest was the comment about the connecting loop to the center of town in one of your projects. Couple of questions about that connecting loop. Did it pass through wetlands? And did it pass over land owned by abutters other than municipal property?
So that's a current project that we're working on, Dave. And we are working with the Public Works Department. It is an accessible sidewalk most of the distance, but there are residents in Rockport who have constructed parking spaces within the right-of-way in front of their homes. And so it's a little bit of a contentious issue that they're going to be going and addressing with individual abutters to talk about their non-conforming parking spaces. There's going to be a bit of a challenge, as you know. I don't know how long it's going to take. We have not yet, on that particular project, finished solving that challenge. But we're working with them on identifying the constraints and showing them what the minimum requirements would be for an accessible route within the right-of-way, within the land that the town owns. And then it will be up to those people that we're working with from the Public Works Department, Board of Selectmen, Building Department, to address those non-conforming parking spaces with those abutters. I don't know what the outcome is going to be yet. People get very territorial about parking spaces, probably in Rockport, especially where the land is so tight. But we're used to those constraints.
Yeah, in this particular project, there's actually a civil engineer that volunteers on many boards here in town that actually put together a potential design for a series of elevated boardwalks through the wetlands area to the south of Marshall Pond.
Okay.
Which would connect Marshall Park to the center of town. And there has been some marked interest in trying to pull that off, but it will be over private property once you get outside the bounds of the park. So I don't know, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the future, but
Sure.
conductivity to the center of town is something that I think people will be very interested in.
And the town of Rockport, Dave is also very interested in, as David mentioned. So this process is underway right now with that town.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to comment too on your comments about the facilities on the park property. As a 9-year member of the Board of Health here in town, not presently, but just recently switched from Board of Health to Parks. You nailed it right on the head that you don't want to put in so many facilities in buildings that you know, kind of overextend your costs on toilets that will be only used during a large event, or say three baseball games and the skate park having an event all at the same time. That's the only time that you would use that many toilets, and committing or knowing where the appropriate location for the portable toilets is totally on point. And my understanding is once you have the basic facilities on a property like this, I don't know if it's under Title V or if it's under our local regulations, then it is much easier to permit portable toilets when needed for large events. So that's great. Lastly, you've covered a lot of the stuff in the wooded area and the wetlands area, Marshall Pond. I think that's where the greatest opportunity is for increased passive recreation. So you satisfied my curiosity about that already. The other huge issue that we have is for parking. I grew up an 1/8 of a mile from down the street on the Chestnut side of Marshall Park, so I spent my life in that neighborhood. And Chestnut Street, when you get a ball game going, especially at the 90-foot diamond with, say, a championship game or something like that from the high school team or whatever, you have cars parked on both sides of that street all the way from one end to the other almost. And that's something that needs to be addressed, but we don't want to take up 2/3 of the park for a parking area.
Yeah. Well,
we've been, if I can make one more comment, we've been very unsuccessful in trying to shift the bulk of that parking to the Route 2A side, which if there's only a game on the 90-foot diamond, that parking area over there is basically empty, and Chestnut Street is jammed.
Today we acknowledge that, and as Charlie knows, we work on school projects with him. Parking is always a big concern. We always come up with creative solutions. Have to still maintain the green space and still allow for parking on overflow parking. So, but there's gravel parking. You know, there are solutions we can come up with.
Yeah. Lastly, if you had something else in the parking, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we're used to this challenge in public parks. The town of Arlington, when we did the Thorndike Field, the redevelopment authority in their town had just passed a rule that they weren't going to allow any more parking in their park, but we were grandfathered under their old rules, but they were very, very particular about how we integrated the parking. So, and that's right by the Alewife Brook T-stop. And then, you know, we've worked in other communities where, you know, they need to prioritize where this park is relative to how people get to it. And we can help you with that as well, because there's different methods of transportation. Car is the predominant one in Lunenburg. We get that. We understand, you know, you're more of a rural community. But there's also the proximity to town and how to make a safe connection between the high school and middle school to this park, where students may be able to walk if their parents aren't available to pick them up or if their friends aren't available to drive them. So, you know, I think that making sure that there's the multiple ways for people to get there safely on bicycle, on foot, and by car is the way of the future. And, you know, I think the trend is to look at making our public ways multimodal to make sure that there's safety for everyone, however they move around the town.
Okay, great. Lastly, again, having, yes.
I just want to be aware of the time.
Okay.
Just.
Okay, go ahead.
Just want to be aware of the time.
The last item was just mentioned, and that was the underground bunker, and I have some very strong feelings about that. And I would be interested in that document that you had in your presentation. I actually have the Historical Society gathering as much information as they have and can find at this point, because I would like to make that a historical focal point if we're able to preserve that bunker.
We'll send it along.
Thank you. Anna or Chris, do you have any questions?
One question I saw in your initial letter, you mentioned the ability to assist the town with various funding sources and things like that. I wonder if you could just briefly highlight what that means and what you've done with other organizations in the past.
Sure. So community development block grants is one of the big ones. We've worked with the town of Andover and the town of Arlington on park projects. I understand that the town of Lunenburg is pursuing the Community Preservation Act. I don't know if it's not yet implemented, right? It hasn't been approved by the voters, but that's an excellent source for this type of park improvement, open space improvements. And a lot of communities in Massachusetts that we work with are benefiting from that. The Land and Water Conservation Fund, it's a federal grant that we're familiar with, that we can also look at where, whether this project would qualify for that. But those are just a few to name off the top. I don't know if there are other private entities. Some of the projects that we've worked with have had the benefit of receiving funds from professional sports organizations because of their support for programs like high school programs for sports, for instance. And we could, help explore what those opportunities are. I don't know of any connection with your town specifically about that, but we could look into that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anna?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys so very much. That was a great presentation. I'm sure you saw in the addendum that had gone out that we are planning on meeting again on Monday and make our decision on Monday, which direction we're going to go in. So thank you so very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having us. I appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Enjoy your evening.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're halfway there, guys. While we have a second before Ray jumps on here.
Bon Jovi said that.
I do want to introduce somebody that is sitting in our audience tonight. Dawn is with us. She is our new minute taker. So she is here and hopefully she will help us play some catch up on some minutes that are extremely overdue.
Hi, Dawn.
I'm working hard.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. Ray, are you on?
I am.
How are you tonight?
I'm great. I feel bad that you're only halfway there tonight.
That's okay. Don't feel bad. This has been a project in the making for so many years that I'm okay sitting here only being halfway through.
Okay. All right.
It's a good thing. So thank you for joining us. You should have screen sharing ability on your end. If you're not seeing it, let me know.
Okay. Let me see. Allow Zoom to share. Not having.
Let's see.
Let's see here.
I do have it set for all participants to be able to share, but I am like the least Zoom technically.
Yeah.
Person there is, so.
And I'm on my wife's computer, so.
You have the green screen share. You see that button?
Yeah, I do, but then it's asking me for.
To select the file.
It's.
At the top where it says basic, advanced, or files. Do you see that? So if you go to files, you should be able to pull it in somehow.
I can pull it up if you can't, Ray.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to pull it up.
Just get it open. Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Mercury is in retrograde.
It is weird though. I see what you're seeing. I can't select all of my files either.
Oh, so you think it's on your end, maybe?
I'm not really sure because
You can blame
usually.
us. I usually can take the blame for everything. I'm good at it. All right, so let me see.
So now you have to drive it, Karen.
It was a nice presentation too.
I think I have it.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
I think you probably have my rest of my screen too. So hold on one second.
Okay.
Looks like
Okay.
just the presentation, I think.
Oh, good, because I'm currently can't get my kids' Christmas list off my screen.
Oh, I don't see that.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Not that I have any clue how to.
Advance. I think you do the little arrows on the bottom.
Yeah, I got it. All right.
Okay. I'm Ray Dunitz. Thanks for meeting with me. Presuming that you all thoroughly read our proposal, so I'll try to not highlight things that you've probably already read, but we're very excited about this project and the opportunity to work with you on it. Next, please. I know several of the firms that you're speaking to, and I always like to kind of differentiate ourselves from others. In the end, I'll sort of wrap up what makes us a bit unique. All the firms are very talented. We're very good listeners. I know you've been, like you said, Karen, you've been working on this for many years. We're coming into this sort of the new kids on the block. So we have to really hear what you have to say about it, what the community has to say. At the same time, we're good at communicating our ideas. Once we can wrap our head around the project, our firm mostly focuses on parks and recreation projects. I would say 80% of our work is with local municipalities around the state. We are also very much in tune with the sustainability measures that we're sort of become a reality in our world. And since Marshall Park is in a sensitive environmental location, we'd like to design with sustainability in mind. And lastly, we're very passionate about what we do. We really enjoy it, and we want to come up with the best ideas for your community. Next, please. So this talks about our team organization, which is pretty much in our proposal, but it just kind of illustrates it's a multi-pronged process that we employ with each municipality that we work with. There's an element of the constituency, the community, business leaders and stakeholders, government, town hall, had their needs in terms of maintenance and keeping things low maintenance and needs of the town, and then working with you all as the Parks Commission. Quite often our projects have to deal with the Conservation Commission and Historic Commissions as well. RDLA is going to be the main front of this project. We'll have several firms behind the scenes working with us. Vertex engineers have worked with the town before on the old primary school project years ago. And so did our cost estimators, PMNC. So we've been in the town. And then we brought along a skateboard consultant that we worked with before in the event that upgrades to the skate park are desired by the town. Next, please. So here, just our pretty faces. I will be your main point of contact for this project. I am the principal, but I'll also be the project manager. And so you'll have one point of contact for this project. Carol and Bart, Bart is his American name, his Chinese name is Wayang, are talented designers, but they'll sort of be behind the scenes. And then our consultants will be behind the scenes as well for this part of the work. Next, please. So quickly, just to go through the site, you're very familiar. The site is quite centrally located in Lunenburg. Next, please. Approximately 28 acres, much of it wetland and woodlands. The rest is dedicated towards active recreational purposes. Next, please. You can see the tree cover within the site, several ball diamonds, and parking facilities. Next, please. And then in 2018, you commissioned a parking study, which is a good start at trying to look at how we can increase the parking count here. Looks like they invested a lot in stormwater runoff into infiltration basins and that type of thing. But this illustrates how many wetlands and the wetland buffers that we need to accommodate, and the topography that we need to accommodate in our design. Next, please. So I'd like to talk just a few minutes about our process. In all of our municipal work, community, reaching out to the community and the public are of the utmost importance. And we've done it in a number of different ways with events at the park sites. And then, of course, the last couple of years, we've really got a handle on the Zoom and can facilitate public meetings quite readily with presentations and that kind of thing. We've also done online surveys. I didn't have a chance to show a slide of a park that we're working on in Weymouth right now, but we've been able to put together a website with places for public input, just to bring them along with the, through concept, through construction process in that project. Next, please. What we mostly got out of the RFP is, we need to upgrade the athletic facilities. We actually did the master plan for Crocker Field in neighboring Fitchburg, which was originally a ball diamond, but also has a track and now primarily used for football. But it's a historic Olmsted landscape, and we do a lot of work with historic landscapes. Next, please. Skate park. This is just some of our skate park consultants' work. They do work all over the country, and they would be helping us kind of come up with concepts if that's the direction that the town wants to go in. Next, please. You want to increase the parking because this is so close to wetlands. We want to look at the possible use of permeable paving to decrease the amount of stormwater runoff. And I know that DPW, Robert and DPW will be very interested in that, employing those sorts of techniques. There are other ways to do it with different types of permeable materials, but the idea is that we do not increase stormwater runoff and try to be more resilient. Next, please. Play can, there was a small component in the scope of work for a small playground. We've been exploring a lot of projects using nature play. We have a lot of natural habitat and environments in this park. Might be a nice way to explore it. Kids love playing on rocks and logs and that type of thing. Next, please. The environment, walking trails. We've done quite a few of those, and getting into nature promotes physical fitness and as well as mental health and getting out and recreating. Next. There was some interest in doing some restroom facilities in this park. We've found an approach that can be offline or off the grid, so to speak. This type of restroom can be used in rural parks, can flush without connections to water and sewer. There's a tank below the restroom and doesn't need to be refilled and waste emptied, but can be used for a long period of time. Hand washing is outside of the enclosure, and all the materials are graffiti proof and easily cleaned. Next, please. Shelters are also a nice thing to incorporate into parks for picnics. We worked on this particular shelter in Brookline at Lars Anderson Park, where there's a place to barbecue and picnic tables built in. And a lot of our inspiration for these shelters come from WPA era National Park Service detailing. And then there's a lot of off-the-shelf shelter products that would fit depending on the programmatic size needs that the town wants. Next, please. Green infrastructure. This is getting back to draining everything on site. I think there was inclination to do that in the 2018 plan, but creating man-made wetlands, allowing things to drain. Of course, we would need to check the soils maps to make sure that the park does drain well, but just sort of creating a natural environment for the walking paths in contrast to the athletic fields would be, I think, a very positive thing for the town. Next, please. So just a quick case study, which is a park that I think is somewhat similar to Marshall Park. It's in New Bedford. We did a master plan for this park to look at circulation. It is a combination of athletic fields and nature trails and woodlands. Next, please. This isn't an urban environment, but it sort of has a natural space to the west. It's a big forested area. And then the fields in the center and then off to the east. There are sort of more strolling paths and that kind of thing. Next, please. The site is basically a perched water table everywhere. So one of the things that we were able to tie together was actually celebrate the drainage and the wetness of the site by creating man-made wetlands and also draining the athletic fields to be sustainable for years to come. Next, please. Just so some of the concepts of these, this type of design where we're doing, we're putting nature in the forefront, but in the context of an athletic facility. Next, please. So we did an existing conditions plan, looked at all the wet areas and the fields and how everything laid out. There was also a historic component to this project. There was a gentleman by the name of Daniel Ricketson who lived here, who was one of the folks during Thoreau's era. They would talk about the environment. And there's a reason why this park is called Brooklawn, is because it's very wet. Next, please. Can we skip this one and go to the next one? And the next one, sorry. So our circulation master plan looked at how we created a circuit around the entire park for walking trails, connecting all the athletic facilities with parking, providing new parking, looking at green infrastructure with man-made wetlands and as features in the park with boardwalks, and then connecting to the woodland area as well. So the park has multiple connections, and we're trying to limit the amount of vehicular traffic to the edges so that the experience of the user is a parked green space, not just a big parking lot. So if you go forward, Karen, back a couple of slides, the city didn't have enough money to pay for all the improvements, so we looked per their request. We looked at phasing the improvements so they can secure grants and prioritize things. We actually came up with 11 phases, and then the next slide shows how we estimated each phase as we move forward. And this is maybe something that you want to consider for Marshall Park. Okay, next, and then I think you need to skip this one. So our process, this is just a quick diagram, is that we listen to define, then we come up with inspirational designs, engineered solutions. We test them over and over and over again before we come up with a final design. And at the same, all throughout the process, we try to maintain our budget. We don't know what the budget for this park, what you're trying to do, but that would be a conversation that we would have at a kickoff. And of course, phasing is always an option. Next, please. Throughout our work, we look at all the data, research the history of the site, collect input from user groups, and all the scope for the project. And with the bottom three, we're interested in making this a sustainable park, and just a healthy place for people to be. Next, please. So just to wrap up, and like I say, you're speaking with many good firms, and we just like to kind of set ourselves apart, and what makes us unique. We do have sort of the cutting edge of sustainability planning in our landscape park experience. I've been doing this for 35 years, with, like I said, 75% of it being parks and recreation projects. We do currently have enough resources to complete the work on time and in budget. I like to also separate myself by saying that I'm involved in every aspect of the project as a project manager and the principal. And lastly, our designs, we don't get so far out that the costs are crazy. And we're also very conscious of municipal realities for maintenance. So I believe that's all I have to talk about, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about our work or our ideas for the project.
Great, thank you. Am I okay to stop screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions first.
Sure.
And then we'll open it up to the rest of the commissioners. Our timeline, is that something that you would be able to meet? Do you see any concerns with it?
Yes, we're actually working on another project in town, and we have a whole separate team for this project. So behind me, I'm going to be the forefront of each one, but yes.
Okay, all right, great. And I've asked this of everybody. So ADA compliance is obviously important to communities, and it definitely is to the Parks Commission. We learned years ago after we built a playground that just because it's ADA compliant doesn't mean it's inclusive. Do you have any experience, or can you talk a little bit about what you typically do in terms of ADA compliance and making sure that these parks are inclusive to the majority or all of the residents in that community?
Sure, and I'm happy to provide examples of, we do a lot of playgrounds, and in every single project, we try to demonstrate, or not demonstrate, but make them as inclusive as possible. The way that we do that is to provide play experiences that can be shared by multiple kids, regardless of their physical abilities. You know, one example are the basket swings, where 4 or 5 kids can swing together rather than, you know, one swing at a time, which is also beneficial from a cost perspective because they take up a smaller safety zone than a traditional swing. Most of our parks, we do what the community asks us to do, basically with accessibility. But I would say the majority of this playgrounds that we're doing now are with the rubber surfacing, which is an accessible surface. We've also done the wood chips. They're less expensive, but more maintenance, as Bob probably knows. They have to be refilled over time. We've worked in communities where there were definitely physically challenged kids. We've done a lot of play equipment for wheelchairs, but not only just for wheelchairs, but you know, kids of any ability can use those play pieces. So it's very much in the forefront of our design. I used to be a certified playground inspector. I dropped it after a while because nobody really hired me to do that work. So, but we're very aware of all of the needs for accessibility and inclusivity.
Great, thank you. Commissioners or Rob, does anybody have a question?
Not so much a question, more commentary. I know, Ray, you focus on sustainability, and that's great. And I actually have my own experience with porous pavement, permeable pavement. So I'm interested in those. And I know something like a permeable pavement can also be a space saver when you kind of include it in your overall stormwater picture. So I think those ideas are great because obviously we want to maximize our recreational space. So I think those, you might have some great ideas for us. Just one thing that, we have a rec director. We are trying to put a focus on, creating programming for residents and namely the kids. Marshall Park, we found, wasn't even suited to it because of the lack of proper facilities, shelter, and bathroom facilities. So, that's important to the DPW just because, we want to see those programs succeed. So it sounds like you have experience in that, obviously, since 75% of your work has been parks and recreation type work. But I just want to make sure, whoever we choose is familiar with that and can help guide us in coming up with, probably, the best kind of mixed use. So when we want to run a summer camp, a day camp, we qualify and can get the proper permits.
And that would be very, thank you for that. That would be very important for her to, bring her on board early on in the project so that we can hash out those needs and get them on paper and see how that programming works, how it manifests itself in the design. So we would do a kickoff meeting and we would we'd like to establish a working group that is separate from the community process, just so we all we're working on this as a team.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any of our other commissioners?
Thank you for the presentation. That was very informative. Regarding the skate park, we have an outside group that's going to bring in their own funding. And the plan right now stands that they'll bring enough funding and expertise that they will carry the project financially. Do you have experience working with outside groups as you're part of of your own project? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of the data gathering process. Obviously we would want to get them on board as soon as possible. We have our own timeline on this project, so we would need to know the space requirements, and I don't know how that timing would work out. We could put in a placeholder if they're looking to get funding, or if they can't secure funding until later. We'll provide a general area for them to develop the skate park. I'm not sure, you do have a skate facility there now.
I'm not sure I'd call it a skate facility. It's a
Well,
couple broken down wooden ramps.
right. Okay. So in the planning process, that may be the best space for it. It may not be the best space for it. And so, we would use our skate park designer to give us a good kind of outline placeholder size. The other question with skate parks are they primarily just for skateboards? Are they for rollerblading and BMX bikes and, multi-use kind of thing? So Grindline can certainly provide that expertise. And yes, we work with, people from other contracts all the time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Chris or Dave? All right.
Sorry about that. I muted myself.
Yeah. I was gonna say, there's no way Dave doesn't have a question.
Dave, are you on every committee in town?
Ray, you just won the prize of the night. Absolutely. He is.
I'm seated on 5 boards of commissions right at the moment, or representing them on 2 other committees.
Yeah.
My question is that there's a desire to try to come up with a way for multi-use of especially the area of the 90-foot diamond. I've seen a couple of what I'll call in the can designs showing 2 baseball diamonds and a soccer field incorporated into one area. Have you worked with those types of designs in the past? And is it a space saver, or is it problematic to try to overlap fields like that?
Well, you have the skinned infield, which, presents a little bit of an issue, but overlaying, no, we've overlaid, soccer fields with baseball diamonds before, and it's, there are regulation dimensions that we work with. They may not be, and we've also done projects where they were not regulation size. We just couldn't fit regulation in. I think that's fairly easily done. It can be a focus of one design, one design option, and maybe there's another design option without that. And we'll see how the community reacts. And it really depends on, gets back to the needs of the recreation department. I know Little League is big here, but you can do little kids soccer fields with movable nets, that kind of thing. And we're not doing artificial turf, so I don't think you're going to be doing artificial turf. So.
Right. One last question, and I meant to ask this to some of the other designers. We have a cinder track. It probably didn't look like it this summer because it's been allowed to grow in with organic material. And if you have a good rainy summer like we had this year, it looks like part of the grass field. Is it a huge challenge to bring a cinder track back to its original condition nowadays? And have you seen any, or have you been involved in anything like that?
Yeah, well, not for a track, but what I'm thinking is there's a material called a cart path mix that you would see on golf courses that binds together better and erodes less. We've used it for trails And it could be edged with a metal edging or something like that to keep it contained. But when you say cinder, are you saying stone dust? Or
No, it's a true cinder track. It was put in the 40s.
Oh my gosh.
And it has granite curbing all the way around it.
Okay, so it does have some kind of edge. Yeah.
Right. It hasn't been maintained. That's been the biggest problem.
Yeah, I mean, anything with a loose material like that is going to have to be maintained, rolled, or something like, depressions may develop that have to be filled in. But maybe an opportunity for some type of permeable asphalt that we talked about before for the parking lot could be an opportunity for running and that kind of thing. And once you start getting into running tracks and everything like that, they get to be quite expensive with the rubber composites and whatnot. So
excuse me.
I'm interested in, you piqued my interest in it. I don't think I've ever seen a cinder track before. May have been one at Crocker Field at one point.
Yeah, I think there were a few in the area, but you're right. I mean, they've gone by the wayside, and I'm guessing part of it is the availability of cinder.
Yeah, I don't think you can get it anymore. But we don't like to use stone dust for those, which is like kind of a small aggregate, because it migrates all over the place. It gets, the sneakers carry it to various different places, and might be a good opportunity for some kind of permeable material, like a permeable asphalt, which is a little harder to run on, but
honestly, nowadays, I think that if we rehab that track in its present configuration, it's going to be more of a walking track.
Right.
When I was growing up in town, I lived in that neighborhood, and it was the athletic center for the entire town. The school complex didn't have a track, and so on. So all the track meets were there on that cinder track, and so the use has changed dramatically.
And we like to use this cart path mix for trails. It's held up remarkably well, even with all the really kind of heavy storms we've been getting lately. Usually everything erodes away, but this stuff it binds together very well and compacted, and it's also nice to walk on.
I'm good, Karen.
Thank you so much. Chris, do you have anything before we move on?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah,
great. Great. Thank you so much, Ray. That was a great presentation. We meet again on Monday, and we'll be making our decision by then. So we'll be making our decision on Monday. So I'm assuming it'll be assistant town manager that will get back to people early next week. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're running a couple of minutes ahead of time, but if Weston and Sampson are all here and ready to go, I'm happy to have you start now.
Can you guys hear me?
I can. Good
Okay.
evening.
So I'm actually wrapping up a second. I'm in the middle of a public meeting myself. But that's all right. We can multitask. And I have my colleague Amanda Gall on as well. She is going to present a quick presentation here.
Can you all see it?
Just in case not everyone is aware, Sherry Ruane, unfortunately, she was scheduled to travel today. And she is currently on a plane, and it was delayed. So it will just be Amanda and I this evening.
No problem.
So good evening. Thank you very much for having us. We're very excited to be meeting with you folks. I'm Brandon Kunkel. I'm a senior team leader with Weston and Sampson. I'm a registered landscape architect, and I've been practicing landscape architecture in the public realm for approximately 22 plus years now. So very excited to meet you all tonight. And Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. I'm Amanda Gall. I work with Brandon at Weston Sampson. I've been there about 6 years and been heavily involved in designing playgrounds and multi-recreational parks. That's about it.
So I just wanted to start with a quick introduction about Weston Sampson as a whole, and then we'll talk about our landscape architecture practice, and then we'll talk about our approach to Marshall Park tonight. So Amanda, next slide.
Okay.
So Weston Sampson is and you'll see in just a slide, but I'll start big and then we'll go down. We have 700 employees, and while that sounds like a large group, the actual landscape architecture practice is only 30. What's great about having such a large firm is we have a lot of resources at our disposal. So what does that mean? That means that collectively, we're not just looking at this from a landscape architecture perspective. We're also looking at it from a civil engineering perspective, a structural perspective, a resiliency perspective, environmental perspective, and transportation. We have countless actual disciplines within Weston and Sampson. We work in the interdisciplinary aspect, and what that means is we're all working collectively as one single group, not just me as a landscape architect or Amanda as a landscape architect. We don't come up with a design and then pass it on down the chain. We're all at the same table. We're all working on the same project at the same time. We're all collectively putting our ideas out there for a better product. And all in the meantime, working with you folks hand in hand. So while the landscape architects might be the project manager for this project, just know that in the background, we have countless resources at our disposal, such as architecture, civil engineering. We don't need to go out and have them put on our team. They're already embedded into our team process. So with that, next slide. So we have already talked about the firm overview. We'll talk about site opportunities, and then we'll talk about our community engagement process, and then we'll talk about athletic facilities and skate parks, playgrounds, natural and cultural resources, and then breakthrough results for the best product available for you guys. Weston Sampson, as I mentioned, is a firm of over 700 professional employees. We're broken up into 3 companies. So we fall under the engineering company, and then we have a CMR company, and then we have a water and wastewater company, or group and division. And then we've been around since 1899, so I don't think you have to worry about us going anywhere. We are well established within New England and all along the East Coast. We have 20 offices in all the highlighted states that you see here. So in Massachusetts alone, we have our headquarters in Reading. Amanda and I are based out of Boston. We also have a Worcester office, Foxborough, Woburn, Chatham, South Yarmouth, and Contiguous. So we also have an office in Rocky Hill and Albany. So collectively, landscape architects are all over New England. Next slide, please. So this is definitely, obviously, an overview of, actually, if I could pause just a minute, Sherry is actually in the waiting room. So she is able to join us if that's okay with you folks.
I just let her in. I just saw her. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, Sherry.
Hey.
You made it.
Just, yeah. Yes, just made it.
So Sherry, if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself, but I had just run through who we are as Weston and Sampson, and we are just getting into Marshall Park. So
great.
Why don't you go from here?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm Sherry Ruane. I'm a principal at Weston and Sampson, and I run the design program there in the landscape architects. And I don't know if Brandon mentioned this, but I'll reiterate, we very much are focused in the public realm. We've focused on public parks and places where we can improve quality of life. And so this is exactly the type of work that we do. And I'll just jump right into Marshall Park, which is a pretty phenomenal place. And Amanda, if you could just go to the next slide. I think particularly what struck us about the site is how many really special moments there are throughout the place, and that a schematic design that really pulls everything together could highlight those things and also create a really holistic experience for folks. So memorials and other really special, unique features could really be highlighted through a schematic design. Next. And I think, you know, I love seeing things like this because you know that parks had a really long history and serve multi-generational cross-section of the community. Certainly there are current standards, and we have certified playground safety inspectors that would be working very closely with us to make sure that the play amenities are up to speed, but also really serve, again, an inclusive population. Next. And then the sports and rec facilities, of course, are a really important part of this park and clearly have been cared for with a lot of love and attention. The lawns look like they're in really good shape. And I do think that for the most part, there's a lot here that would, you know, carry forward in a schematic design and really leverage what's still in good shape, and then improve some of the appurtenances that could probably serve the community at a higher level. And I know there was talk about pavilion and a restroom and facilities like that. So our team includes architects and folks who would support those efforts. Next. And then, you know, last but not least, I think the natural resources and the natural beauty of this place and the special cultural features that exist throughout the site, the old stone walls, that is all a really important part of what makes this place great. And I think really offers a completely unique experience in a public park. So we have a couple of examples of places that you definitely don't want to ruin what's awesome about them, but certainly can create an accessible and inclusive way to view them. Next. And then on the public engagement front, which is incredibly important to us, we have developed a pretty widespread and diverse toolbox of things that we use to engage the public, from on-site meetings to pop-up events, you know, being able to join in at like a farmer's market, or if there's a town day, that's where we'd want to be. We want to meet people right where they are, and also create really meaningful engagement through both online and in-person workshops. And the next slide shows a little bit about, I know we're all maybe getting to a point of fatigue with video conferences, but certainly integrating surveys and polling and word clouds and mapping, it starts to really engage folks. And we've done actually hybrid meetings where we're in the town at the town hall making a presentation, but we also have it on video for folks that didn't want to join in person. So it's provided a much wider reach, and certainly feel like we've gotten a much more comprehensive response. I'm going to pass it over to Brandon, who's going to talk a little bit about master planning.
And I apologize, I had to mute myself because the other meeting is letting out. So if you hear background noise, I'm just trying to get done before they close down City Hall, but that's okay. We're going to get this done. So master plan, we look at master planning not just at the site itself. We're looking at the complete context that it lies within. We're going to look at your permitting of the fields that you use now. We're going to look at the ways that we'll talk with your operations folks. We're going to talk with the local leagues that use the fields, how they use the fields. We're not just gonna come in with preconceived ideas, and we're gonna digest the data, and we like to conform the programming to what the best needs are for the community and for the park itself. And we look at that just for both a recreation and as well as athletic fields purposes. We'll look at the orientation of the fields and make sure they're in the best orientation based on the use. We'll look at the size of the fields. We'll look at whether or not it makes sense to do multi-purpose fields. We'll look at the latest trends in sports field activities. In many communities, pickleball is on the rise and baseball is on a decline. Now that isn't necessarily all across the board, but those are all things that we consider in the next iteration in the life of this park. So next slide, please. We've also have done several skate parks. This is the latest one that just broke ground yesterday. This is in Worcester, Mass. We work with a skate park designer exclusively. He all works throughout the entire country, but he has done several projects in New England. We worked with him several times now. Great firm. It's Pillar Design. And we have a great symbiotic relationship with it. Next slide. And I'm actually gonna hand it over to Amanda to talk about our playground approach.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So we have a wide variety of experience with designing playgrounds. We've designed anywhere from little neighborhood playgrounds to larger ones in multi-recreational parks, all of which we've loved being part of. Additionally, we have multiple LAs that are CPSI certified and would be involved heavily in the design process. Through our experience, we have learned the importance of play and how to design a space in a way that can be safe, accessible, inclusive, and overall bring joy to the users. Playgrounds play a crucial role in the development of motion and provide the ability for users to develop skills that you can't really get anywhere else, like swinging, spinning, rocking, sliding, and balancing. But aside from the physical play aspect, playgrounds are extremely important in developing social emotional skills, cognitive skills, communication skills, and heightened sensory skills. We find inclusion to be extremely important, and we take pride in our ability to incorporate all types of play for everyone. So whether you prefer quiet space, a challenge, certain textures, or physically impaired, we strive to accommodate all. We also understand the importance of listening to the community and getting their input on what they want and need for their local playground. This one right here, the Hillcroft Playground, is a great example of a project that had a heavy community input process. They desired a more natural feel for their small neighborhood playground. So we chose more natural colors, which fit perfectly into the environment. And we incorporated landscape boulders at the perimeter to further that natural feel. And this next playground has a similar feel with a more playful vibe. This was installed this past summer at Pierce Elementary School and has been a massive success. So it doesn't only have to be the equipment that invokes play. Kids have these grand imaginations that can be triggered even further with something as simple as fun patterns and use of topography. So overall, no playground is the same. They are shaped by the community that uses them. So whether they want adventure play, natural play, or more traditional play, we're here to listen and help produce a playground that everybody loves. So with that, I'll hand it back to Sherry.
Thank you. This is the type of design I was referring to earlier, where we really took a look at some of the more natural resources in a community and provided an inclusive way of accessing them and designed a few outdoor classroom moments. And now every 6th grade class goes through this as a part of their science and learning curriculum. And really take it seriously that we want to work with the land and be informed by the land and really help folks embrace their natural environment. And the next one is similar, but in Worcester at Institute Park, where The boardwalk and the pier is a little bit more formal, but the idea is similar in that it's accessing parts of the park that weren't available before. And also in this master plan, we were able to create memorial moments, really highlight some existing site features, and create a master plan that really brought everything together, including things like parking and utilities and all the important stuff that not a lot of folks pay mind to, but expect it just to be working. Next. So just to conclude, our team is really focuses on comprehensive park design, so the whole thing. And we have specialists in sports and rec and in playgrounds and in skate parks through our sub. We have an interdependent in-house team of designers, engineers, and scientists. So from survey to wetlands flagging to geotechnical to structural to architecture, we've got those folks. And we've actually brought them along with us in park design for almost a decade now, about 10 to 12 years, where we've really created a tight-knit group of professionals who work incredibly well together. As I mentioned earlier, our focus is on municipal work, and that is what we love to do. Improving quality of life is what we get pretty excited about. And we have regional experience, permitting expertise, and can do a full summary of what would be needed, and our passion around public engagement. And I guess I would just end by saying thank you so much for this opportunity. I apologize for being late, but I'm happy that I was able to join. And I will conclude by saying this is the type of place that creates breakthrough opportunity for towns. It is a stunning parcel that you own, and with some really beautiful and thoughtful intervention, this can be elevated to a really well-used multi-generational resource that would serve generations and generations of people from Lunenburg. So thank you, and we will take questions and answers.
Great, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I'm going to start off with a couple of my questions, and then we'll hand it off to the other folks. We have what appears to be a pretty aggressive timeline. Is that something that you folks will be able to accommodate?
Yes, absolutely. We did note that the timeline was tight and that there's some very prescribed public meetings that need to follow scheduling. And we do think actually that we can meet those. I think we need to hit the ground running. And what we typically like to do is our first public meeting, we typically like to listen to folks. So maybe what we could do if we were able to, move forward quickly is get out into the park on a Saturday in the next couple of weeks and be able to engage folks, let folks know, hey, the designers are going to be out there, and have a little bit of an open house in the park so we can talk to folks and hear folks and do a simultaneous online survey. So if they didn't make it to the park, they can still contribute ideas. And with that, we'd be able to create those conceptual designs that you mentioned and start to get the feedback loop going, because we want to be able to iterate on those and home in on the design features that people are responding.
Great, thank you very much for that. Other commissioners or DPW director, do you folks have any questions? Maybe?
Can you talk a little bit about, have you been involved with assisting with, I guess, park project funding channels and things like that, or looking at things that way?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. In the Commonwealth, as you probably know, there are park grant and land grant, and there's also the federal land and water conservation funding, and we've been successful at applying for and securing a lot of these grants. And often, if it's a larger site, we might phase it, and we've been really successful in getting successful years of funding. So we know how to position those grants. We know what they're looking for, like access to the pond, that would be a huge win. Environmental education, that would be a huge win. And focusing on inclusion and accessibility, that would be a huge win. So we can position sort of the key pieces that they'd be looking for. And yeah, and we like to brainstorm too, because sometimes there's a stormwater management component, and so we can pull from other funding sources that wouldn't be a typical park funding, but we can be strategic.
I guess I might just add, Sherry, as you mentioned, we'll leverage different aspects of just what we would say is smart design or typical design for us, in that stormwater management, and how do we leverage that with particularly athletic fields, putting in robust subsurface drainage systems that not only captures the field drainage but more beyond that. So
yeah, like the parking also. Exactly. And it can be pre-treated and then infiltrate. And I'll offer this too, just in keeping with that. We are incredibly cognizant of operation and maintenance as I would offer it's the most important thing. If we work together as a team and develop a park that cannot be operated and maintained, we have failed you. And that is not what we intend to do. So in fact, what we like to do is visit parks in your community or in surrounding communities with your maintenance superintendent and talk about pain points. We walked a site where the pathways were all 5 feet wide, but the plow blade on the skid steer was 6 feet wide. And so every year they were reseeding along every path because the plow and the path didn't screw up. And that's a simple example, but that's an important thing. That's a lot of time and energy that could be devoted to other things. So we do a design forensics, revisit some of our projects and do a pretty deep dive into lessons learned and what's been successful and what could be improved upon.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you. Rob, Anna, Dave.
We have a group who is an outside group, the skate park, who they'll be bringing their own funding and design to the project. And I'm wondering if you have had experience working with an outside group who's also part of developing the plan and so forth, and if you could speak.
Sure, yes. We actually love it when there is a really motivated collection of people who are aligned around a vision and probably have been working for a number of years to get to this point, and there's a lot of passion behind it. We have worked, in fact, a parkour course, and parkour is sort of the physical body movement over lots of different things, concrete and metal bars. And there was a pretty strong parkour contingent in Somerville, Massachusetts. And so we worked with them and did the design with them and used part of our fee to pay them to help us support design. And then we had our structural engineers vet it and make sure that it was, constructible. But that was a really hand in hand back and forth around what the features should be, where it should be located, what kind of adjacencies were appropriate. And it was very successful. And to this day, it's been, very well used.
I would even add, Sherry, that it makes our job easier. One, because at the end of the day, when the park is designed and built, while we don't say we ever walk away from it, we're not the primary user. We
Right.
want this park to be a complete success. So these people are already going to know exactly how it works best for them, and we're not having preconceived notions.
Right. We can help them place it in the site and make sure that it's going to drain and make sure that it's not under an oak tree so there's acorns all over, really be smart about it, but
right.
Certainly work together.
All right, thank you.
Rob or Dave?
Yeah, I'll just ask the same question I've posed to each consultant. We have a young rec program that kind of floundered a little bit in not being able to use Marshall Park because we don't have proper facilities to meet state requirements for camps. And actually part of that is because we weren't meeting the exclusion necessarily for a town program because we use some outside vendors. So it's just important to me that planning for Marshall includes, that component of it, not just, organized sports, but also our rec program. So if you have experience in that, that's great. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. I think in many communities, the rec program is really the lifeblood of after school and summer programming, and many families rely heavily on that for engagement. So we take it really seriously, and also work very closely with camp directors to understand, what's typical programming, and then balance programming capacity with flexibility. Because as we've seen, there's certain things that are going to be really popular and people are going to be drawn to it. And then 5 or 6 years later, it's going to move. And so making sure that facilities are supportive and absolutely will allow the programming to move forward, but also that you're not completely locked in to either a certain number of kiddos or a certain type of programming. So we have worked with many cities and towns across the Commonwealth exactly that way.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
Dave?
Yeah, I just have one quick question that's come to mind. The forested areas on this park facility have not been managed properly for many, many years. There was an original covenant when the property was gifted to the town, actually, by the previous owner, that no live tree on the entire property was to be cut. I believe legally that's expired now. But I'm wondering about the capability of a forestry plan being incorporated in the proposal.
Yes, 100%. We have arborists within our team. We have 3 of them actually. And many of them, all 3, 3 for 3, have experience with sort of forest management strategies, and also identifying tree species diversity, keystone trees, like the sort of grandmother and grandfather trees of the community that might need extra special care. And then also invasive species, which while living, frankly, removal would benefit the overall ecosystem because, if it's a Norway maple or if it, that type of strategic management actually increases biodiversity and creates a much longer lived forest. So we absolutely could, at least in the schematic design, write up observations and overarching, suggestions for direction, and then be able to take a deeper dive into specifics as we get further into the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else have anything? Great. Well, thank you guys so much. And sorry this is so late. I'm sure you guys have had the longest day ever. I don't know how you guys do it day in and day out, but thank you. Very much appreciated. Our timeline is we're meeting again on Monday to make our decision. And so at that point, I'm assuming our assistant town manager will reach back out to you guys and let you know where everybody ended up. So
great.
Thank
you so much. We really appreciate it. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Those went well. Hi, Julie. All right, so Julie, do you have anything you want to add? I know you've been on forever and it's been a long night.
No, I mean, I just enjoy listening to them. I think, the important thing is that the commissioners all grade them now on their interview and get those to me. If you're going to announce this on Monday, by tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Friday could work.
Are we talking about doing the same grading that we did for their written presentations?
Just on the interview section.
There's one more what they
separate
call
tab.
Yeah.
The last tab, that one just it's ranking them.
It's on page 13 in the RFP.
Okay.
Yep.
Or it's labeled page 12, but it's page 13 due to the cover sheet.
Okay.
So then we'll meet on Monday. Monday's actually going to be a regular meeting for us. So then we can, we'll include this, we'll make the decision, and then we go back to you with that information, and then you go from there with it.
Yeah.
I do have one question, because I guess this is something that we've never discussed, and maybe I'm putting a cart before a horse, but I don't think I am. There was a comment this evening about a budget. We don't really have one. I'm not, how do we deal with that?
Does it fall under, Rob, is it under your budget? This project?
Karen, do you mean the budget for the master plan or?
Yeah, so like there was mention of, we try to keep it within your budget. Well, that's nice, but I'm not sure what our budget is.
Yeah, I think in kind of broad terms in their presentations, they talk about, down the road, or even in their planning, if the town had a budget in mind for the improvements or, any work that's proposed as part of this master plan, I think that's what they're saying is work within that budget. Obviously, they know what our budget is for this process, but yeah, so that's a good question. And I think you don't really, obviously there's no budgetary numbers now because we don't know kind of what they're going to come up with. And so I think that's all part of the process. If they come back with an initial plan, that's the Taj Mahal, we'll know that that's definitely not going to be within our budget. So it's hard to give them that kind of direction right now.
All right, perfect.
Rob, do we really know though that if they come with a Taj Mahal that we can't come up with grant funding that could make it workable?
Yeah, they may come with you at the Taj Mahal with caveats saying, hey, listen, we know we can get this and we can try to get this and we can maybe make this work for the town. So, and I think one firm commented on kind of how I see things is you start big and then you get real. And I think that's the terminology. And it's pretty kind of in your face, but that's what it is you start big and then you value engineer that and you come back to something that the town can reasonably, go out and get funding for, get, money appropriated for it. So I think that's important. And I think they all understand that. So some consultants tend to run wild with that without seeing the real part of it. But it's always nice to know what you could have versus what you can afford.
Okay, great. So then we will, Julie, we'll provide the answers to the last tab to you, our rankings for that. And then you'll provide on Monday, I'll have the information, either you or I don't know if you're coming on Monday, we'll be able to, say this is where they were ranked and what their costs came in as.
Well, you have to consider the costs too. So right now you're basing them off of the non-price proposal.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're going to give me that, you'll give us that information for Monday, so we have that information? Okay. Are you coming Monday or are we winging it with just me?
Monday, what time is it Monday?
7.
7 still?
I can tell you we're not going to be talking about this first thing.
Yeah.
Skate Park's going to come in and do their thing first.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay.
I'm just kind of the fly on the wall anyways.
Another question I have. So I know we have the gradings and the price point and all that, but the final decision will be made by a vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. After a discussion. Okay.
Yep, it will be.
Okay.
So,
Julie, do we actually have dollar amounts from each of these entities? Or is that going to be negotiated after they're chosen?
They've submitted price proposals. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can't open them yet.
Yep, great. Awesome. Thank you for that, Julie. I appreciate it. Commissioners, we have another meeting on Monday. Right now, the agenda items that I have are skate park, an open space update, and the decision on this. Is there anything else that anybody can think of that needs to be added?
We had an open space meeting last week, so if you want to add open space.
I did. That was the second thing I
That
just
was,
Oh, God. It's too late at night for me.
Walking
Turning
around
off.
behind
I
me,
just want to
so,
say goodnight.
yeah.
Oh, my God.
Good night, Julie. Thank you.
Well,
Rob,
thank you.
do you have anything you need us to add to the agenda for Monday?
No.
Okay. All right, so I'm
Rob,
probably.
will you be in the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm interested to see how, how you all rank these. One question I had, I don't know if you were interested in me also ranking. I know it's a commission vote but I hadn't even thought about it until we
Do
started.
you have copies of the proposals?
I don't. I'd get it. I would imagine I can get them from Julie.
She may have, I mean, you're welcome to, I have no issue with you weighing in on it. I don't know what the, I think any insight is always appreciative across the board. It does, so, I mean, and I don't have an issue with it.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fine by me.
yeah.
I don't think there's anything that says he can't. Right?
No. So, all right, so I will be in touch with Julie. I will put an agenda together for Monday. I already have the Zoom link. Dawn, these are recorded, so please don't feel like you have to come to all of our meetings in person. They are being recorded. Does anybody else have any public or board comment?
Ra, I saw a post. Nice job by the DPW getting the center of town lighted up for the holidays. It was a neat post to see today.
Yeah, all I did was, point fingers and make some phone calls, and Mike DeVakis, who did the work.
Good delegation then. Good delegation.
Yeah, I do. No, really, Mike the electrician did a wonderful job, and he's a real good guy, and so I'm very appreciative of the work he did.
Great. Rob, do you know where we are in terms of hiring of a permanent rec director?
We are going to begin doing some interviews tomorrow. Well, this Thursday. Wow, it's already Thursday. Yeah, I think we've got one scheduled for tomorrow. I think we've got 3 candidates that we're interviewing, Rob Thompson being one of them. So we had a interest from actually, I think, 2 people who had previously applied. So we're going to get that going.
Great, and I'll add a DPW director update to that, our agenda on Monday. It's gonna be the typical agenda that we normally have. It's just gonna, so I'll keep the basic things. I'll just add these 3 in to the middle. So, all right, I think we are all set then.
Oh, the other thing I'd add, so I'm waiting to hear back from the
new
school
facilities director.
Yes, which I copied him on the initial email, but she didn't see that I copied him on the initial email.
So since nobody knows
but-
what's going on with this, the gist of this is that we are currently using the school facilities for our adult soccer program that's being run on Sunday mornings, Chris?
Sundays at 1.
Sundays at 1, so Sunday afternoons, and the goals, the nets that were on the fields, because their seasons were over, they put them away and locked them up. So Chris is trying to gain access to those nets. So he has a couple of emails out. I'm trying to garner that information.
When did that happen, Chris?
We used them on Sunday and everyone said, how long are we going to keep this going? I said, as long as the ground's not frozen. They had said they're going to maintain the lines in November. So the lines on the field are fine. They're not going anywhere. The grass isn't growing enough that those are going to disappear anytime soon. And the general consensus of folks that have been showing up is as long as it's safe and, not bitterly cold, people are willing to play. So my message to everybody was just that we're half the people that are there are coaching soccer in town, and we're the ones that move those nets in the spring, or the end of the season anyway, and get them off the fields or whatnot. So I said, we're more than happy to move those. And if it's an issue where they need to be moved every week, then I'm sure we could figure a means of moving them every week or just when we're done. I don't think it's going to go that much longer, but I would envision we probably have, I know people were interested in still playing at least this coming weekend. I don't know about Thanksgiving weekend. And then it's just kind of watching the weather sort of deal. I mean, 30 degrees outside and the ground's frozen solid, people aren't interested in probably running around the soccer field. But
was the superintendent and the chairman?
yeah, she
were
responded,
included?
and yeah, so I copied the superintendent, Rob, and Rob, the grounds facilities director, and the superintendent's assistant as well as Karen. So.
If the new facilities director doesn't weigh in soon, which I imagine he will, I'll try and put a call into him.
Yeah, if you want to ping him, that would be great, because I mean, she commented back right away last night, and so I was anticipating that I would have heard from him today, because she had said that he was just going to reach out to Bunnell, but I didn't as of right now. I haven't heard anything back, so I'd love to give the folks that have been coming a heads up that, you know, and I may have means if someone did tell me they have portable, you know, 12 by 6 nets, you know, that he's happy to bring down. You know, that's an alternative. But obviously the simple solution is if they're still there and we can use them, then great. I was just unaware. It's not the biggest deal in the world. I was just unaware of, you know, it's a communication thing. I think, you know, just there was never a determination of a date in which this would end. It was just, there was only a kind of a generic sort of the lines would be maintained in November. So just to be using them on Sunday and then Monday afternoon, they ripped the Band-Aid off and they're not on the field anymore.
Yeah.
So, I'd just like to give the folks that have been coming a heads up that it's over, I guess, before it's just, hey, by the way, it's over. Sorry.
Okay. Totally back to the agenda, because I forgot to ask Dave Passio something. Do we need to put the septic stuff at Marshall on the agenda? Or do I need to check in with Greg? Do you know how that was left after that last Board of Health meeting?
I'm thinking a lot of things have been going on lately.
I remember myself. I was there. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, they approved the basic design with the 1,000 gallon a minute, 1,000 gallon a day flow, and they were going to move that forward, including, I believe, I haven't talked to Greg recently about that. I wanted to get past special town meeting, but including, I believe, setting up with Conscom to make sure that they're going to be okay once they've completed this design.
They're going to do that, or we need to do that?
They will do that. That's part of the contract.
I just pinged Greg Roy because I know he just works 24/7. So
oh yeah,
if he's not working now, he'll answer me tomorrow. I did ask if it's something that he thinks we need on the agenda for Monday, or if it can wait a little bit longer. So, all right, awesome. I will get that agenda.
Karen,
yeah,
I'm not going to let you get off this easy.
Okay, go ahead.
Marshall Park. What was the date that we amended?
You know, it's funny. Anna and I were just talking about that earlier this evening. Off the top of my head, I don't know. Hold on.
What was the question, Dave?
What date we chose to extend the use of Marshall Park because of the baseball programming and the weather and so on.
I believe we agreed to follow the deal that they had signed, which was the end of November.
November 30th is what I was thinking.
I believe it's November 30th is what was in the form that got to them. So there was whatever that form is, we need to edit that form to make sure it reflects the dates that we
need to go back on we need to go back, because that November 1st date, whatever I had said, that would have been coming from either minutes or notes that I had taken, and I very well could have been wrong. So we need to go back on that meeting and listen to that meeting and figure out what the correct dates are. But I am certain that he showed us a document that said November 30th. And I am certain, now that I think about it, that we extended it to November 30th for both the use of the field and porta potty. And
I don't think they were looking to use it till November 30th. However, I think we just agreed to
Yep.
abide by the form that they had signed.
Yep.
The porta potty I thought was going to be, I know it's at least, 2 days ago, it was still over there.
It's
It's still there today.
Steve Childs had said he's been in contact with that company and he's just waiting for them to get out of there. So it's
That's what it sounded. It didn't sound like he was going to be keeping it there to November 30th. I think you had said mid-November kind of deal.
Yeah.
They're actually,
you
I know they
expect
were done the first weekend. They went to, I want to say the 6th was their last
Yeah.
use.
So you weren't at our last meeting, Rob, but the gist of it was that we had all been under the assumption that our fall season ended November 1st. And has been ingrained in our brains for months now. But on the use form that he would have filled out, it says November 30th. And we don't know if that's a mistake on our understanding of it. Maybe there was something wrong in the minutes or whatever, or if it's an administrative mistake on who put the form together. So we have to figure that out. And honestly, I haven't gone back yet to try to figure it out.
I think that opens the door too for what we need to be, again, I think good communication with those using the facilities that we have to make sure we're accommodating those groups too. So if their season is going to be November 6th, then maybe we need to look at that again before next fall.
Yeah, we can do that. So do you have something else, Dave?
Yeah, just one quick thank you, if you could, Rob, to Kit and his sidekick. I believe they were the two out there with that very tall step ladder pushing the netting back on the backdrop of the 90-foot diamond. That must have been, I didn't have time to go over and talk with them. I was on the other end of the park, but
I noticed the net was moved. That's good.
Yeah.
We'll catch
Put that
snow this
back
winter.
so the snow doesn't damage it this year like it did last year.
Yeah, and it ended up turning out to be more work than any of us thought it was going to be. In fact, it's up in an odd shape, and there's even a spot where they can't reach with a ladder. At least I said, please don't do that, what you were talking about, because if I drive by and see you doing it, I'll be really mad. But so we may still have a little bit of work left to do there, and it may involve renting a lift. But I think Kit has readjusted that, so I think we may be okay. But yeah, it was more than we anticipated. So they did a good job, and they're not looking forward to going. Although they have a plan to make it better when they go back, and then to make it easier to do what they did, they're going to add some more cable and more support. So Kit has some great ideas.
Great.
And just so the rest of the commissioners know, Rob and I have had a conversation about once the portable toilet is removed at that gate area at the back of the 90-foot diamond, that gate is going to be closed, and the pipe gate adjacent to the softball field is also going to be closed. We're having congregations of teenagers in the mornings in that area where the skate park used to be. And so we're planning to close off those gates.
So would that stop the flow from the 90-foot diamond to the other side of the park?
What flow?
Like if I'm on one side of the park and I'm walking and I want to get to the other side?
That was a walk-through gate in center field.
Okay, you're talking about the double gate, okay. I just have one quick thing, Karen. I know the skate park is coming next week to see to present their proposal. I just want to make sure we're not planning to do a vote, or because I think as I think about the construction and everything that goes with it, I think as a commission, we need to put some safety nets in place for an agreement between the skate park and us to make sure that whatever we say they can do, it gets done. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do on Monday is not a green light for people, for the group to go and start digging and building anything.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I think
there's a lot of pieces that come with that, including the execution of a basically a legal agreement that says they can go on to do that. So no, that would-
Okay.
no.
Well,
And they're not breaking ground Monday anyway, so.
no, right. I just want to make sure that, and maybe even then communicate that, because I mean, sometimes groups get okay from town and we've been in a small town where people could just get things done. But I'm not sure we need to outgrow that type of behavior, because it makes it harder to manage and maintain everything.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Understood.
all.
Understood. And I'll clarify the process in the coming weeks as well on how that has to be done. I think I have it written down somewhere. So I think I got it in an email when I first asked about it, but we'll get that. But no, that wouldn't be giving permission for build on Monday.
Just want to make sure we're
Yep,
not going to.
I expect some stuff coming from Greg Roy, including information on conservation and the need for conservation to be involved because of the area and where the closeness to water and conservation land and whatnot. So
Yeah, he said last night he's got a thing for us here.
yeah. So I think it'll be an informative meeting. So, all right. Does anybody else have anything else before we motion to adjourn this at 9:50?
Motion to adjourn.
adjourn.
Fine, I'll second it then.
All right.
Excellent. A quick roll call. Chris?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Rob.
Thanks, Don. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.